I woke up to her standing over me. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just smooth, empty skin where her face should be. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. The only sound was her wedding beads clicking as she bent lower and lower. They say the village road is safe during the day. At night it's different. The old women warn us, don't look at anything strange. Keep walking. I thought it was just a story. That night I was coming back from my uncle's house. It was late. The moon was high. My sandals kicked up dust as I hurried along the path. That's when I saw her. She was standing by the old Iroko tree, wearing a white wrapper, her head tilted like she was listening. The beads on her arms and neck gleamed in the moonlight. She was beautiful, but something was wrong. She didn't move. She didn't breathe. Then she turned. I don't know what I saw first. The empty skin where her face should be, or the way her body jerked, like something inside her was pulling the strings. I ran. I ran so fast my chest burned. I could hear her behind me, her beads clicking, her bare feet dragging. The village lights were close, but before I reached them, everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in my room. My mother was beside me crying. My uncle said they found me lying outside his door at dawn, my feet bloody, my face frozen in terror. Nobody asked what happened. They didn't have to. Because now when I sleep, I hear them. Click, click, click. The beads. She's coming back. The first night, I thought it was a dream. I woke up in the dark, my heart pounding. My room was quiet, but the sound was still there. Soft, steady. Click, 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 like beads knocking together. I squeezed my eyes shut. Maybe it was just the wind. Maybe my mind was playing tricks. But then, the air changed. The room felt smaller, heavier, like someone was inside with me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Then the mattress dipped. Something was sitting at the foot of my bed. My skin turned ice cold. I wanted to scream, but my throat locked up. Slowly I opened my eyes. And there she was, the faceless bride. Her white wrapper was dirty now, streaked with mud. Her head tilted like she was listening, like she could hear my heartbeat slamming against my ribs. Then she leaned forward. No eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just smooth skin where a face should be. I tried to run, but my body wouldn't move. My fingers twitched, but they felt like they weren't mine. I wanted to close my eyes, but I couldn't. She was too close now. I could feel the cold air coming off her skin. Then she whispered, not with a mouth, not with words, but inside my head. You saw me? My body jerked like I'd been shocked. My vision blurred. The last thing I remember was her hands reaching for me, long bony fingers covered in something dark. Then nothing. The next morning, my mother found me sitting on the floor, staring at the wall. My lips were cracked. My hands were ice cold. She didn't ask. She just wrapped me in a cloth and whispered prayers under her breath. The elders came that night. They burned herbs. They drew marks on my skin. They muttered things in low voices, but none of them looked me in the eye. Because they knew, once you see the faceless bride, she never really leaves. And at night, when the house is quiet, I still hear it. Click, click, click. She's waiting. I stopped sleeping. The elders tried everything. Prayers, charms, even a visit to the diviner in the next village. Nothing worked. Every night, I heard her. Click, click, click. Some nights, I felt her standing by my bed, just watching. Other nights, she whispered inside my head, soft crawling words that made my skin burn. Come with me. You saw me. Now you must follow. My mother was worried. She made me drink bitter herbs. She tied protective charms around my wrists, but none of it mattered. The faceless bride had chosen me. And then she took my cousin. Chuka was only 10. He was my uncle's son, always following me around, always laughing. He didn't believe in spirits. He said ghosts were just tricks of the mind. That night, he stayed over. He slept on a mat beside my bed, snoring softly. I stared at the ceiling, too afraid to close my eyes. I was tired, so tired, but I knew the moment I slept, she would come. Then, click, click, click. My blood turned to ice. The sound wasn't outside. It wasn't in my head. It was inside the room. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I turned my head. The door was open. She was standing in the doorway. The moonlight made her white wrapper glow. Her beads clicked softly as she took a slow, jerking step forward. And then, Chuka stirred. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him and run, but my body locked up. He rubbed his eyes, confused. "Who's that?" he mumbled. She stepped closer. Chuka sat up. He must have seen her face, or the place where her face should have been, because his mouth opened in a silent scream. But before he could move, she reached for him. His body stiffened. His eyes rolled back. He gasped. Once, then he collapsed. The faceless bride turned to me, her head tilted. I swear I could feel her smiling, even without a mouth. Then she stepped backward, disappearing into the shadows. I scrambled to Chuka's side, shaking him. He was ice cold. His skin was pale, his lips dry. His eyes were open, but empty. He was breathing, but he wasn't there anymore. The next morning, my uncle carried him to the elders. They called his name, shook him, waved burning leaves under his nose. But Chuka didn't blink, didn't speak. The elders looked at me. "You brought this on him," one of them said. I wanted to scream that it wasn't my fault, that I didn't ask to see her. But deep down, I knew the truth. She didn't want Chuka. She wanted me. And next time, she wouldn't leave without taking me with her. Chuka never woke up. He was alive, but empty. His mother fed him, bathed him, called his name over and over. But he just sat there, staring at nothing. His body was here, but his spirit was gone, and it was my fault. The elders said there was only one way to fix it. I had to go back. That night, they took me to the old Iroko tree, the same place I first saw her. The village priest tied a red cloth around my waist and handed me a calabash filled with something dark and thick, goat's blood, maybe something worse. "You must call her," he said. My whole body felt cold. My mother was crying, but she didn't stop them. She knew this was the only way. If I didn't do this, Chuka would be lost forever, and I would never be free. I took a deep breath and poured the blood onto the roots of the tree. The smell was sharp, metallic. The air felt heavier, like the night itself was watching. Then I spoke the words the priest had taught me. "I see you. I hear you. I am ready." For a long moment, nothing happened. The wind was still. The night was silent. Then, click, 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 it came from behind me. I turned slowly, my heart hammering. She was there. Her white wrapper was torn, smeared with dirt. Her beads gleamed in the moonlight. Her head tilted, listening. Then she stepped forward, one slow, jerking step. Then another. I wanted to run. Every part of me screamed to get away, but I stayed. I forced my shaking hands to hold still. "You have me now," I whispered. Her body twitched. Then she lunged. Her hands gripped my shoulders, ice cold and strong. Her face, her empty, smooth face, was inches from mine. I felt something pressing into my mind, something dark, pulling me out of my body. I was going to die. I was going to become her. Then the priest shouted something. There was a loud crack as he broke a kola nut in his hands and threw the pieces at her feet. She screamed, not with a voice, not with a mouth, but inside my head, loud, sharp, like bones snapping. Her grip loosened. Her body jerked back, twisting, convulsing. And then she was gone. The wind rushed past, shaking the trees. The night was still again. The priest knelt beside me. "It is dawn." Chuka woke up the next morning. He didn't remember anything. Not the night she came, not the fear, not the emptiness. It was like he had just been asleep for days. But I remember. I still hear her sometimes. Not every night, not close, but somewhere far in the darkness. Click, click, click. I should have been free. The priest said it was over. The elders poured libations. My mother whispered prayers over me every night. But deep inside, I knew the truth. She wasn't gone. She was waiting. It started small. The first time, I was fetching water from the stream. The afternoon sun was hot, my back sticky with sweat. I bent down, scooping cool water onto my face. And that's when I saw it. The reflection. My face in the water, except it wasn't mine. Smooth, empty, no eyes, no mouth. I stumbled back, dropping the calabash. My chest heaved, my vision swam. I looked around, but there was nothing. Just the wind rustling the trees. Just the quiet home of the forest. I told myself, I imagined it, that my mind was still broken from that night. But then, Chuka started seeing her too. One night, he woke up screaming. "She's in the room," he cried. "She's watching." We rushed in, my uncle grabbing him, my mother lighting a lamp. But there was nothing there. Still, he refused to sleep alone after that. He kept waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the corner of the room, whispering, "She's standing there." It got worse. Chuka grew quiet. He wouldn't go outside after dark. He wouldn't eat much. Then one morning, he barely spoke. My aunt found him standing at the village gate, barefoot, his eyes blank. He didn't know how he got there, but I knew. She was calling him. The elders didn't believe us. "The ritual was done," they said. "She's gone." But they were wrong. She wasn't gone. She was just choosing a new bride. And this time, she wanted Chuka. I had to stop her. I had to end it, even if it meant facing her again. I knew what I had to do. The elders wouldn't help. The priest said the ritual was done, but I knew she was still here. I could feel her like a shadow pressed against my skin. She wouldn't stop until she took Chuka, so I decided to find her first. I waited until midnight. The moon was full, casting a pale glow over the village. I wrapped a cloth around my waist, grabbed a lantern, and walked toward the old Iroko tree, the same place where I first saw her. The night was quiet, too quiet. No crickets, no rustling leaves, just the sound of my breathing and the soft crunch of my footsteps on dry earth. Then, click, click, click. She was already here. I gripped the lantern tighter, stepping forward. "I know you're there," I whispered. "I know what you want." The hair shifted. The shadows deepened. Then, she stepped out from behind the tree. Her white wrapper dragged against the dirt. Her beads clicked softly. Her head tilted, listening, and her face, still smooth, still empty, was turned toward me. "I'm not afraid of you," I lied. She twitched. Then she moved, her body jerking like a puppet on strings. One step, another, closer. I forced myself to stand still. "I know why you take people," I said. "I know what you are." She froze. The air turned ice cold. The priest had told me a story, though he never spoke it aloud after the ritual. She had been a bride once, long ago, a woman who was promised to a man but never wed. Some say she ran away, some say she was taken, others say she was betrayed. But one thing was certain, she died before she could become a wife. And now, she wandered, searching for someone to take her place. That's why she chose me. That's why she was taking Chuka. "You don't have to do this," I whispered. "You don't have to take him." For a moment, she didn't move. Then her hands twitched, her body shuddered, and slowly her fingers rose to her face. She pressed her hands against the smooth skin. Her shoulders trembled. Then a deep, shuddering moan escaped from her, not with a mouth, not with words, but inside my head. She was crying. I took a step closer. I can end this, I said. I can set you free. She lurched forward, her icy fingers grabbing my wrist. My body locked up, my head pounded. Then, images flooded my mind. A village long gone. A wedding that never happened. A man with a cruel smile. A betrayal that sealed her fate. And then, darkness. A voice, hollow and broken, whispered inside my skull. Bury me. I woke up on the ground. The lantern had burned out. The night was quiet again. But I understood. She wasn't a spirit that could be banished with herbs and chants. She wasn't hunting just for the sake of it. She was lost, trapped, and she needed to be laid to rest. I had to find her body. I had to bury the faceless bride.